Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Woodbury County Zoning Commission. Today's date is November 27th, 2023. It's 5:02 p.m. Tonight's meeting will be audio taped and minutes will be prepared. In respect to all parties, we ask those present, turn off cell phones. They're set to vibrate. Those in attendance are asked to legibly complete the attendance sheet upon the front table. I would like to take a moment to review the procedures that the commission will follow tonight. First, the commission will handle the normal housekeeping agenda items, and for each application on the agenda, I will open the public hearing on the item. The planning and zoning staff will then present the staff report, including the staff recommendation. Any letters or other communication received from the public prior to the hearing will be entered into the record. The applicant will then have the opportunity to present his or her case and respond to the staff report. Next, we will hear comments from the public. If you would like to speak either in support of or against the application, you must come to the microphone. Please first state your name and address for the record. All interested parties should be heard, but repetitious comments should be avoided. Repetitious or irrelevant comments may be rolled out of order by the chair. I ask that you remain respectful and courteous with your comments at all times. Then again, we will limit comments to 3 minutes tonight. Looks like we got a good crowd. So after all public comments have been heard, the staff and applicant may make a closing statement. The hearing shall then be closed by motion and vote. Thereafter, no further comments from the staff, public, or applicant may be heard unless asked for by the commission. The commission shall then deliberate the case and may ask questions of the applicant, the staff, or any party offering testimony. However, such questions do not reopen the hearing for additional comments from the public unless so requested or approved by the commission. The commission will then formulate and vote on a motion. A motion will either typically grant or deny the requested application. Any commission member who has an ex parte communication to place on the record of this must do so prior to the beginning of the deliberation of the respective agenda items. Having said that, the next item on the agenda is roll call. So let the record reflect that all commissioners are present with the exception of Tom Bride. The next item on the agenda then is public comment on matters not on the agenda. Do we have anything not on the agenda that anybody wants to comment on? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go on to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes for 10/23 of 23.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that was unanimous. Approval of the minutes. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing for solar energy, utility scale solar systems, consideration of solar ordinances for recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. Dan, you want to read this information into the record, please?
Okay, good evening. The backup materials provided for this evening in the packet available on the Zoning Commission website, on the Woodbury County website. We have a list of information from the previous proceedings with some of the public input, either summarized or attempted transcript to an extent. Within this document, basically to go with the nutshell route so we can hear from the public. There's kind of generally 3 concepts that are provided. Concept 1 is looking at a utility solar conditional use, which would add features to the existing conditional use requirements geared toward the zoning in the general industrial zoning district. So concept 1 would basically add added features to the conditional use process for the general industrial, which would highlight the need for special agreements with the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors as well as the Board of Adjustment. So it's kind of a multifaceted involvement from the various boards that have zoning authority. Concept number 2 could be used in conjunction with concept number 1, where it could open up the possibility of a overlay district that could be considered possibly in agricultural areas. And so the 2 are kind of meant to be used together, whether or not you expand it out into the agricultural preservation district. And then the 3rd concept is something very familiar to zoning, and that is to use the county development plan process. And the development plan is the kind of the underlying document for the community that we a lot of times use for zoning decisions, including the land use map, which sets priorities for particular areas across the county. Staff has mentioned that this is a convenient juncture to go into the development plan as part of this consideration, with the fact that the development plan is sitting in the hopper and it's been in development for the last few years. And there's an opportunity to continue to learn from the public on the type of county that we want to be over the next 20 years, because these documents definitely play a role. So at this juncture with the backup materials, everything that has been provided, whether it's the conditional use expansion, the overlay district, all of that is fluid. The input is very much appreciated and needed as these documents are put together, as the commission ultimately hopes to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to look at this policy based upon the direction that the supervisors have given this respective commission. So at this time, I'll turn it back. I do want to mention one thing, I guess, before I turn it back over to the chair. We did receive a communication from the Alex Delworth of the Center for Rural Affairs. Basically, it's some documentation that we have already received into the record, but I do ask that the commission receive this information from the Center of Rural Affairs, Alex Delworth, into the record so that it becomes part of the minutes and viewable for the public and useful for consideration.
Okay, so I need a motion to receive this packet of information.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, I've got a second motion and a second. Can I get all in favor, say aye, or, okay, any are opposed? Same sign. Okay, that motion carried unanimously. So the next item on the agenda is the public. You're up. 3 minutes each, please. And be sure to state your name and your address. We're having a little difficulty keeping track of everybody. We have people on the phone too, don't we?
Yes. There's 3 on the phone as well.
Okay. We have 3 on the phone. Anybody on the phone want to speak? Everybody's shy tonight. Anyone in the public want to speak?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Bob Fritzmeyer and I live at 2933 Leach here in Sioux City. And I think that the overlay district for the solar would be really good for Woodbury County. The solar panels, they create a good pollinator environment or habitat, which really, according to the USDA, is very important for ensuring that we have food. And we often hear, you know, Iowa helps to feed the world, and this would be part of the mix, really. Scientists estimate that about 75% of the world's flowering plants, like alfalfa, like soybeans that we have plentifully here in Iowa, are depending on the pollinators to flourish. I think that the solar scorecard is all right on target in helping to address the native grasses. And there are the three season flowering plants that do increase the survival of the pollinators that are needed. These will have a really positive effect on the food production. Solar is also, as a form of renewable energy, will improve our environment and the air that we breathe here in Woodbury County. And I wonder, may I submit 2 documents? These are from the United States Department of Agriculture, and it's the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, this one. And the other one is from the United States Department of Energy. It just, basically these reinforce the facts I've been presenting here. Would you be willing to accept these?
We need a motion to accept the material.
Motion to accept.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, yeah, unanimously motion that yes, we will accept your material. Yes,
Yeah. Have a copy.
thank you. Okay. Thank you. Do you have anyone else?
Capital Lawns, 140 gallon Salix. I'm going to speak again just in recommendation against these on overlay for agriculture for solar. And I just want to point out that, again, that solar and agriculture simply aren't compatible. So deploying solar on top of agricultural land, especially land that's in production or productive land in the county, which most of the land, I think even that's been proposed to date, or at least been considered, is very productive land. And the two really just aren't compatible. And a 30-year time period is a very long period of time. And I'll talk about that later when it comes to decommissioning or other considerations. But I would just urge that to be strongly considered. Talking about productivity of solar, as I've researched and continue to look at it, I mean, it's something that is known to degrade over time. So solar, I've heard people talk about, even in the first year or two, there's like several different ways that solar degrades. But sounds like even in the first couple of years, you might already see the production drop by even a third, and it will continue to drop year over year. And that's established, like a 1 to 1.5% drop. Now, that obviously doesn't directly impact the county when it comes to, obviously how much, but it does indirectly affect how much power is generated, which therefore affects how much income is generated, and that also affects how much taxes are generated. So I think that the science on these are, while they have certainly been improved, and I think they've become less expensive, they're still very high expense to put in place. And when you look at how long they're going to operate, especially in some of the conditions we have here in Iowa, I think that it's kind of a stretch to say that we can count on these things even operating with any reasonable amount of performance for 30 years. Obviously, the production of solar is quite low, and it's temporary. So it's not a baseline production model. It's something that would be additive. And in the end, we keep hearing discussions of how there's pressure to turn down our baseline or coal, natural gas, and other types of power production. Sadly, I think these are being used as justification for that. And I just think in the end that this is it's kind of a red herring argument, because it's going to leave us without a baseline, and these can't reproduce that. The only reason we're pursuing these things at all, given the costs and given their inefficiencies, is federal subsidies. Well, it'd be one thing if we were doing these subsidies while we had a surplus of money, but I think everybody knows we don't have a surplus of money at the federal government. They're spending over $1 trillion in deficit every year, and our debt is growing rapidly. So anything that this thing would generate is driving inflation, which is going to really jeopardize whatever positives these things are touted to produce. So it just all of the fundamentals to these things are questionable at best. I just looked at the map and saw where I live from Salix. I live by Salix, just south of there, and most of the land that's being proposed for this is right up abutting the town of Salix. I'm really curious to know what the town of Salix opinion is of that, because it could affect how much they can grow. It certainly will affect their land values and that type of thing. So anyway, those would be my primary reasons today to resist a overlay or otherwise consideration for solar. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Robert Wilson with Rangeland Energy Management. I just wanted to speak to, solar development. I'm a renewable energy developer. Things have really changed and can continue to change as more and more projects are permitted. Some of the new things that a lot of projects are doing fits under the definition of agrivoltaics, in the sense that there are portions of these projects that can still be utilized to harvest different types of agriculture, while not necessarily row crops, other types like barley, beans, peppers, that sort of thing. In addition, we often utilize sheep herding as a form of vegetation control. So that's, in a sense, another form of agrivoltaics. And finally, when the project's operating, it's essentially the land being laid fallow the same way that you would see a CRP parcel. So there's no massive grading or laying of gravel or anything outside of our perimeter roads. So it would essentially be CRP lands with solar modules on top of them in the racking system. In addition, I wanted to touch on decommissioning requirements. Our site control agreements all have decommissioning and remediation requirements that we're bound to. In addition to us, our financing partners are also bound to those commitments as well. Also, in a lot of CUP processes, municipalities often request bond requirements. So we'll put aside funds to finance the decommissioning in the event that the project trades hands. There's money that's been set aside prior to permitting the project that will finance the decommissioning of the project. So at the end of the lifetime, there are monies in county hands to provide for the decommissioning of the project. In addition, there's no concrete that's used with the pylon, so it's a relatively easy decommissioning process. And the salvage value of the project itself will often finance the decommissioning of the project or exceed the value of the decommissioning costs. Finally, these projects provide for replacement generation for retiring thermal generators. There's a thermal generator that's nearby that's actually half retired, and it's under a lawsuit with the Sierra Club to be retired. It's one of Mid-American's dirtiest in their coal fleet. So these projects provide for new generation that keeps power prices low for the public as thermal generators are retired. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Doyle Turner, 2738 200 Street, Mobile. One of the main things that I think we really need to be cognizant of is that we have a development plan that is really close to being done. And I have talked to some of the supervisors, and I do know that some of them are thinking that it would be wise to wait until that development plan is done due to just the total number of the acres that are involved in something like this. It's not like a conditional use where you're looking at one property and how one property affects the neighborhood. We're looking at changing the outlook of a significant portion of our county. And I think that considering the laws that whenever you get into litigation or anything like that, you always go back to that development plan. And I think it really would be wise to not necessarily delay this, but to not get the cart ahead of the horse and to get this done after the development plan is done. The other thing that I'd like to bring up is people talk about the income derived off of this from tax revenue. It's not an apples to apples to compare this to property tax revenue because it doesn't create revenue from property tax. It creates revenue from the electricity that is produced. There the Mid-American has requested from the IUB to look into nuclear, those small nuclear power plants. So what we have is the main asset that these companies are looking at are the transmission lines. You know, they're worth more than the land is. I mean, you're looking at probably a $5 billion transmission line, and that's what they're after. And we have to also be cognitive that this is only going to really utilize 20 to 25% of capacity, and the fact that these don't produce electricity all the time. And we don't want to get in a position where we shortchange ourselves an opportunity to produce electricity 95 to 100% of the time compared to 20 to 25% of the time. So when you are comparing, when you are looking at a possible revenue stream, you have to compare apples to apples, and you have to compare that this is not fully funding our transmission lines. So I think the overlay is something that is worth looking at, but not until after the comprehensive map has been developed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Christopher Widman, my address is 1866 220th Street, Bronson, Iowa. I'm a fifth generation farmer. I love the county and its ag's roots, and I hope to pass my farm someday on to my kids. I'm not opposed to industrial solar in the county by any means, but I don't think it has a place on ag preservation land. That these big and industrial solar complexes that, I mean, they need to stay on the industrial land. We have a planning and zoning department and committee that basically they're here to tell us, hey, you know, if I went there and I wanted to build on my land, they would be like, no, there's an industrial park, go buy land there and build there. Not, how about let's rezone your ag land to build on it. So I think the county is doing its 20-year development plan. And as they do that, like they need to take into consideration, we can increase these big like if we want solar in the county, how about let's increase our industrial parks and expand them a little, not cherry pick out in the middle of the county for a few landowners that have come in front of you that say, hey, we need to expand this. I think it just doesn't, like, it doesn't seem consistent to, you know, have all of these landowners come that already have signed contracts with you guys. Like, the county is supposed to develop their plan based on a land development plan that is not that it's supposed to be with the general welfare of the county, not a few. So like if we start making these changes based on what these individuals have came here and asked for, and they're trying to change things, so these individuals that have signed contracts get their land to go in it, then I think the county has a big legal issue, because we're going to be going after them saying, you capitulated to these people with their own interest, and that was not in the general welfare of the county. So I would say, let's wait till the 20-year plan is done. I don't think that there's a place for overlay on ag land. Let's expand the industrial parks and tell the landowners, go buy the industrial land. Don't try to use your ag land to make industrial profits. The last thing I would like to enter into the record are a few questions for you guys that if you could answer them by the next meeting or whatnot. And then there's an article in here and a listing of everybody that has land easements signed in the county. Thank you.
We need a motion to receive the information that you have.
Move to accept it.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Have these scanned in and shared with us. We'll give them to you.
Mhm. Yep.
My name's Elizabeth Widman again, 1665 220th Street, Sergeant Bluff. I'm a landowner, and I would just like to urge you, like some other people, to delay your decision until the new Woodbury County Comprehensive Plan is finished. I understand that they're working on it right now and have been working on it. And the reason for this is because as residents of Woodbury County, that is protection for us. It gives guidelines as to what the county is going to do moving forward, what's expected, instead of just having, oh, surprise, somebody came and now we're going to have this solar utility farm next to a place that you've been developing and you like the view, etc. And appreciate the job you're all doing, appreciate the jobs the supervisors are doing, but this is a comprehensive plan that lasts for 20 years. And boards come and go, people come and go, but that's what's in place that gives guidance to the county. And so again, I believe that utility solar belongs in industrial ground. It is not agricultural. And I believe that the comprehensive plan is called an agricultural preservation district for a reason. That's to preserve agricultural land. And I just, like I said, like to urge you to delay this until their development plan is finished. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Tom with NextEra. Can you hear me?
Okay, Tom. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry.
They're in. I just wanted to ask if is there a recommended proposal or a recommendation coming out of staff for which way to proceed, or are all of them up for just for discussion at this point?
Yeah. There's three concepts that are out there for discussion that are fluid. One is the conditional use for the general industrial. The second is the overlay district scenario that's been discussed. And the third is the comprehensive plan as part of a background to look at that, because we're toward the end of that or in that process as well. So those three things, but there is language in the backup material that has the conditional use and the overlay district language in there that's fluid and being discussed, but there's no concrete direct one pointed at this point.
Okay, thank you. I've read through all the options, and you know, just from a development perspective, certainly appreciate the time that's spent, and you know, as a developer of a project, you know, we respect and really appreciate the time that you guys are looking at and would work towards being able to build a project. We would just ask, as the development language is put together, you know, some of the setbacks, the 1,000-foot setback from residential dwellings, that makes for some serious challenges on a project, as well as some of the grading language, specifically limiting it to 5%. And so, you know, just depending on how, you know, the ordinance moves forward and what proposal we're looking at, those are two considerations that would be difficult for us, and we'd like to see something changed. I know there's a lot of conversation as well as it relates to industrial ground and the development of solar in the industrial properties. Solar development is while some may consider the use to be industrial in nature, the fact that you would be developing solar on large pieces of property that are being geared for industrial development would not be the greatest situation, considering, you know, you build industrial ground, you're building streets and roads and sewer and water and a whole host of public utilities and public infrastructure to serve industrial tax base and industrial facilities that employ people at a large scale and are adding value in a very urbanized area. The value that comes from a solar development is the taxes to the county, and there's not a lot of investment in public utilities or infrastructure to support that. So pointing all of your solar development to industrial property creates a whole host of problems that I would see in the future anyway. I do think the overlay district is a great way to go. Solar can be very similar and like to an ag use. I know some folks don't like the way it looks, but I think that traditionally that's how the regulations have been cast in the past. I know Lynn County is moving forward with that, and appreciate the work that's been done to take a look at that in the scorecard for Woodbury as well. So I wanted to just address those couple items, and I'd be just looking forward to how the board or the commission reviews what's being proposed and takes action in the future. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Roger Brink from Ottawa, Iowa. I've been hearing a lot of comments about it needs to stay into the agricultural ground, but yet the government is paying CRP ground to lay it aside, and people's got trees growing up 6 feet, 7 feet tall, and then they go in there and spray them. It looks a lot worse than what the solar panels will. We got 3 solar panels projects in Monona County already. They don't seem to bother too many people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Leo Yoakum, 1691, 250th Street at Salix. I think option 2 would be the best of these 3 options that we've discussed. I think it is important that the overlay designation keeps farmland in the AP zone so that when the solar lease expires, the farmland will be returned to agricultural production. I do have a concern with the qualifying CSR2 of 65 or less. The majority of the farmland east of 75 has a CSR 1 rating between 45 and 55, which increased between 20 and 34 points in 2014 when the precipitation factor was removed. I'm in favor of removing that as a qualifying factor. During the Iowa Utility Board's application process, the Soil Conservation Service, NRCS, and the DNR will be involved with grass and plant selection to ensure that soil quality will be preserved, which will make the transition back to agriculture production possible. In the ordinance, under rough draft under H, ground cover and buffer areas, this references some of the practices that are listed in the solar scorecard. Prior to construction, soil sampling will be done to create a baseline for fertility. But in addition to that, soil probing will also be used to determine the type and the characteristics of the soil. This is used to determine the size and the gauge of the tubing and the proper depth to place the steel tubing that supports those brackets. There isn't any concrete put in the ground for this. No concrete to support the tubes and no blacktop under the panels. The method of installation allows for a very efficient and minimal soil disturbance for the removal of the solar array at the expiration of the solar contract, which will allow for a smooth transition back into the agricultural production. Now, I would like to address just a little bit about setback proposals. And I hope that the separation distance will be compatible with placement of the panels. The occupied residence setbacks that I have seen are usually in the 150 to 300 foot setback from a residence. In addition, there's usually a landscaping or screening plan put in place that I also see in the proposed ordinance. The city also has a jurisdiction of 2 miles. And I don't know if this little issue on the bottom is contemplating having a county ordinance of 2 miles towards the city. So I don't know if that would interfere. And does the county have current setbacks from like a road right away? And is that what we should be using, like if it's 50 or 60 feet from the road right of way? I want to make a comment on the 2005 planning. 3.4 is protecting prime farmland is determined by a corn suitable rating over 65 CSR. If we use that CSR 1, which they are using right here, that's going to put most of these lands that they'll have to be under an 85 to qualify. So that's why the CSR2 is important.
Yeah, that was time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have some information. This is just kind of review of what you had before, but it's going to reinforce what I said tonight.
Okay. We need a motion to receive.
I'll make a motion to receive the
Can I
information.
get a second?
Second.
We have a
Thank
motion
you.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. So what? Give them all to Dan?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Naomi Widman, 1866 220th Street. I just want to thank you guys. I don't envy your position at all. So thank you for the work and time that you guys are putting into this. I know it's a lot. I do want to make one comment as we consider people's thoughts and opinions. I think we need to consider the motivations as well when we are looking at what they're saying, information that they're giving us, and just what their motivation behind it might be. I am not opposed to solar energy at all. I think it has its right place. I am concerned about granting an overlay for select areas that are not even close to industrial areas in ag preservation land. I think that, like it's been mentioned multiple times, that there's a 20-year plan that's nearly complete that we've been working on. I definitely think we should delay until that's completed before we consider anything. As far as granting overlay, it's important that we have the best interest of the general community and the county in mind versus catering to particular individuals who have honestly a very significant financial interest in receiving an overlay. So data has shown that land values surrounding solar complexes decrease, particularly residences. And so when we are looking at that, I feel like people should have freedom to decide what happens on their land to a certain extent. When that starts negatively impacting surrounding landowners, that's where our governing bodies are obligated to step in and make regulations, and that's just how life works, really. So I think when we are making decisions, we need to think about the general welfare, what is in the best interest of them. I don't think it's any secret. There's easements that have been signed. There are a very small select individuals that will profit from that. I think if we just grant overlays, not thinking about what's in the best interest of everyone in this surrounding area, it seems to show a lot more favoritism versus, okay, what, as Woodbury County, we're developing, what do we want to do? What is best for the county as we move forward, and everyone who resides in this county? So I would think if we want to expand solar, which I'm not opposed to at all, I think that we can look at that. We can consider that, but I don't think cherry picking little parcels in the middle of ag preservation land is probably the best way to go about that. So I would just encourage the zoning commission, the board of supervisors, just to consider their role in making decisions for the best interest of the county, and not particular individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Corey, 1757, 290th Street, Salix. My concern is, in speaking to some of the city leaders of this town of Salix, they're pretty much in the dark right now on this whole project. And looking at the map and the land that is being proposed for this, the community is kind of penned in from the southwest corner, the whole east side running up, going north towards Sergeant Bluff. I never imagined living here in Northwest Iowa that I was going to have to be dealing with carbon sequestration, wind farms, and now solar in the middle of the county to boot. I never thought I'd have to deal with that as a resident of the state and the county and the community. It's a real challenge, and they will, all three of these particular proposals are coming, want to come through this county, as most of you are aware. Not only that, but none of them work without the taxpayer being involved in this. That bothers me. If you have to subsidize it to make it work, does that make sense? On the backs of the American taxpayer, considering what we're all dealing with today regarding inflation and what's happening to all of us when it comes to how we put bread on the table. So there's a lot of things that need to be considered here. Not only that, but the agricultural land itself and where in the county and the future and what is our county going to look like. Because once we open this Pandora's box, you know how that goes, right? Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? A new person. No.
Greg Yoakum, 1629, 270th Street. I feel very fortunate to be part of production agriculture. A lot of consolidation took place in the 1980s during the farm crisis, which gave way to producers selling their livestock and continuing to farm and taking a job in town. To some extent, we have that today. As a growing number of farms become more automated, using artificial intelligence and other smart technologies to boost performance, energy production could be the next step to enhancing land use. I am confident that in the future of our family operation could consist of pork production, corn production, soybean production, and energy production. The corn and soybeans that I raise on my farm right now, the corn goes to ethanol plants, which is energy. The soybeans go to AGP, which in turn the soybean oil gets turned to biodiesel, another form of energy. With solar on the farms that I have will produce energy that can also be used locally. I'm in favor of using the overlay district in the AP zone for utility solar. The infrastructure is already there with two 345 kV lines and two 161 kV lines. These go through my farms that I've been farming around since I came back in 2000. My dad's been farming around them when he bought his first farm in the 60s. I'm also in favor of using the solar scorecard versus the CSR rating. The meeting in Mobile, I discussed to you about the difference between CSR2 and CSR1. The scorecard will also encourage more desirable, diverse native grass, flowering plants, and pollinators. The Soil Conservation Service is also involved in determining the best seed mix for preserving and improving the soil. The scorecard will also encourage dialogue between the solar developer and the non-participating neighbors and landowners. The supervisors on September 26th recommended that no more than 1% of farmland every 4 years be allowed for utility solar. I agree with that, as it will give the county officials time to analyze and make adjustments where they see needed. When my dad retired, I took over the family farm. With me, I'm a 5th generation farmer. And this spring, my nephew graduated college. He came to work for me this summer. He's showing interest in the farm. And I also have a 12-year-old son that I hope will be the 6th generation taking over our farm. Is that my time?
That was your time, Greg.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? That's all we have. Some people on the phone aren't. They've been the same people since we've started, right? Okay. People on the phone, do you have any comments that you'd like to share? Yeah, if we don't have anybody else, I think we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
That would ultimately be closing the public hearing.
Okay, so we have to have a motion to close public hearing, please. Someone? Yeah.
My name is Rebecca Murr. I live at 3437 Nebraska Street here in town. I have a couple questions. As a county taxpayer, I'm wondering what the benefit of these solar farms are to people who live in town, or if it's a benefit just to the people who own the land. My other question is, what are the exact costs that would be assessed to taxpayers? They talked about decommissioning these, and it wouldn't take much, but it sounded like there would be an expense. Who pays for that? I feel solar farms are an industry and should be subject to the way industrial land use restrictions are already set up. When I purchased my house, I checked into solar, and I was told I'd have to cut a tree down. I would have to get a second mortgage. The cost would be over $20,000, and I would only save about 25% of my energy bill. I also looked up the largest solar farms in Iowa, and 3 to 4 of those are only on buildings. None of those are on ag lands. And the largest one is in Washington, Iowa. So I thought that was very interesting. So that's just my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else? Not. Entertain a motion to go out of closed session.
I will make a motion if there's nobody else who wants to speak to go out of closed session.
Okay, we have a motion. Could I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Okay, we are now out of closed session.
It's closing public.
Public,
hearing.
yeah, sorry. Sorry, okay, so the next item on the agenda then is,
Should probably kind of decide this.
oh,
Yeah.
at this point, not for this one?
Yeah, we should probably do it under
Okay.
following this public hearing.
Okay, so I've been instructed that what's our next step? Do we want another work session? Do we want another public hearing? When do we want it?
When is the development plan gonna be finished? What is the timeline on that?
That's actually part. The question in the development plan is actually, these two issues are kind of together right now as in a way, because the development plan's been in progress for quite some time, and you recall Simcoe has briefed the board a few times throughout the year. I think the most recent was last May. In that timeframe, April or May, we had that event here in May, kind of the open house scenario where folks kind of looked at what has been collected throughout the last couple of years on these respective issues. So we're at a juncture where the development plan could move forward. And the next step for the development plan is to be debated at the zoning commission level. In other words, public hearings would have to happen with the zoning commission, depending on how the commission wants to take it up. And ultimately, the commission will recommend a development plan to the Board of Supervisors. And that can definitely, that's being part of the option number 3. That could be part of that. But going back, we've got the concept number 1 or the option number 1, which is the adjustment to the conditional use, as well as option number 2 is looking at the concept of the overlay and how the overlay fits in. So as was referenced in the report, is we're at a juncture where that could be taken up and be part of the debate, or it's how the commission wants to look at moving forward with crafting the recommendation, as well as working with the supervisors in terms of the priority as far as when we start to look at the development plan for a concept. So the commission can definitely make recommendations or adjust or edit concept number 1, concept number 2, exploring, like, so I know setbacks were mentioned tonight. What are the appropriate separation distances that could be put in with these ordinances? The concepts that we've learned from the public in general, how can we incorporate many of these ideas into the language that are out there? So the commission can look at addressing any one of these concepts the way they choose in terms of the supervisors. So ultimately, if you want to report back to the supervisors on a pathway that you think would be appropriate, whether it would be to pursue the concept 1, the concept 2, or take the development plan and kind of present forward a timeline or a pathway of moving ahead. I know that we can't emphasize enough, we've been very concerned about the harvest time period in terms of collecting the most amount of input as possible. Now that we're kind of exiting that in the new time frame, the sky is the limit ahead of us as far as which options to look at and to work with the Board of Supervisors on.
Anybody have a feel for the direction you want to go? Thoughts? Work sessions, wait for the development plan, start working on the development plan. Sounds like it's ready for review.
The development the development plan is not just zoning, it's economic development, it's the full scope of the county. What kind of county do we want to be over the next 20 years? So it's a very serious plan that encompasses the future of the county. And this plan has definitely not been rushed. I mean, if we're linking it back to COVID, we're linking it to various meetings, various data collection. Data has been collected at the county fairs even. And so data has definitely been collected. It's just definitely an opportunity when it's brought up to the zoning commission. The zoning commission ultimately has to look at that plan and make a recommendation over to the Board of Supervisors. So that's an opportunity to decide what is the renewable energy policy. And I understand they've touched on that some, but concepts that can be brought forward. Obviously, I know CSR has been mentioned tonight. I think Mr. Yocum mentioned 3.4 in the development plan referencing the CSR 1. Well, that's the kind of debate that you have with the development plan is what do you enumerate in the development plan to be a guide for the future as far as the policy, and to be able to collect the input from the public. That would be an opportunity to question the moisture content. Or we've had the CSR change from 1 to 2 during the time frame we've been on the current development plan, which was adopted in 2005. So that's part of the reason we have development plans and try to update them every 20 years or so in order to collect the information on the innovations that happen. Society evolves over 20 years, things change, and that's why development plans are used to collect that input from the public. And when you talk to Aaron over at Simcoe, you'll find that lots of heavy lifting and work has been done as far as to get to where we're at right now, including collecting the input and even the development of the map. So if there's areas out there in the county that industrial area zones can be expanded, that could definitely be a time frame to look at that. So development plans are definitely something that can be used as a document to support future criteria, future ordinances. So that's one of the options out there. So it just kind of comes down to maybe the commission doing a future work session so that you can weigh the information. We've had a lot of meetings here, and the attempt of this latest staff report in the packet is to try to funnel all the information into a one-stop place where we can look at the different viewpoints, the different information, the different comments that are submitted in to help make hopefully a decision that could be, worthy for support across the board. And we got to look at this as an entire county across the board. Woodbury County is a very large county. We have several zoning districts as a whole, various priorities as a whole. And when we put ordinances into place, ordinances are meant to serve a particular purpose. And the role is, you look at the changes in technology, the modernization and everything, and are our ordinances playing a role with the different opportunities out there? So it's kind of, in a way, doing the famous SWOT analysis too. What are the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, and even threats to the community out there? And those things definitely need to be refined some more. And the language that's been put into the packet is hopefully a guide to show us that we have to deal with things. I know there's been decommissioning plans mentioned by various others on various sides of the debate. Those are kind of universal concepts. If you're going to be entertaining solar, you need to have some types of agreements in place to protect the county, whether it's decommissioning, whether it's road agreements, et cetera, across the board. And we've learned that from other debates. And so we have a wealth of information to look at, and hopefully we can continue to collect the information. But ultimately, the commission will have to basically communicate to the supervisors where we are at as far as what the next step would be, whether it's wanting to pursue the development plan, whether it's looking at the overlay district, which is definitely an option. If you're to do an overlay district, you got to go back and look at the criteria. There's concerns about CSR. You got to look at that. I know the scorecard scenarios have been referenced. Slope has been referenced. But also we go back and look at our conditional use permit criteria. Our criteria there talks about whether something fits or does not fit within an area. So that was kind of brought into the overlay language as kind of a reminder about countywide, how we treat districts in preparation for the ordinance, and also be able to scrutinize whether an area in general at the local level is appropriate or not. And so those are kind of the three options. And I would say that it would probably be valuable to maybe do a work session scenario where we have this further information now and to look at more specific.
Commissioners, what you please.
I'm kind of inclined to do a work session. I'd like to prioritize the concepts that we have, our three choices that we were looking at. And then particularly look at the things that were outlined, setbacks, the slope, CSR, scorecard. And so we get a handle on those too. In my opinion, it would be good to streamline this with the development plan process so that we are somewhat in line with supervisors and their plan or simple.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, some of the interesting things as far as are brought up today too, the concepts of looking at the general industrial area and whether you expand that or not, which should be would be related to the comprehensive planning, versus having an overlay. And then also, if we can get some information on there's a comment brought up about land values near solar that are affected, if it affects your neighbors, I think it's important that we look into that too. So it'd be nice if we get some more information on the validity of that also would be useful. But I would support a work session also, and whether we consider keeping it the way it is right now in the general industrial area while we wait for the comp plan, or would be an option also. So I mentioned the Pandora's box and making sure we do it right the first time, or as close as we can being right the first time, I think is important. So.
Okay, so I've got 3. It sounds like a work session. Now it's a matter of scheduling it. Scheduling it this time of the year gets tricky.
Is it inappropriate? I mean, is it inappropriate to schedule work session in January after you get to the holidays, or does it have to be before the next meeting?
It's up to us.
If I may, it's fully the prerogative of the commission.
It's really, I mean, I've had really good discussion and good impact and good feedback from the county, the people today, which was really amazing. So I appreciate that a lot. But I think sometimes getting through the holidays would be kind of nice too, if we're not in a hurry to get the proposal done for the end of the year. But
So we had a chance to look at the calendar a little bit, and the next meeting is scheduled for December 25th.
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see you all here.
I don't, 25th probably will not work.
No, I don't think that'll work. You don't want to work that day, I'm sure. Yeah, so we need to schedule another time, either before, or after. I've already heard January. Anybody else have a preference down the line there, commissioners?
January also.
You're inclined to go to January?
It's pretty busy in December.
Corey? Yeah, schedule looks crazy right now. Go to January. January, our meeting is,
Yeah, technically, if you stay on the current zoning commission schedule, that pushes it, I mean, the regular 4th Monday of the month, that's the 22nd. So if you want to do a work session before that, that could be arranged where you're just very similar to what was accomplished
done
before.
before. Yeah, do you have a preference as far as, do we do it during a regular zoning commission meeting? Do you do a separate? I'm seeing a head shake here.
Do we have time to do it at a regular meeting?
Right now, it looks like we have maybe one application that could
Well-
potentially occur.
I will remind everyone that the first meeting usually is the night where you'll
Oh.
vote who the chair and the vice chair and those items of business happen.
I know.
I can't, looking through the crystal ball, I couldn't tell you if you're gonna have 1, 2, or 3 applications or very likely one. But with an issue as significant as this, having the full attention on it, I do think is helpful as far as a contained work session. So maybe you could work on it earlier and pick one of those days, maybe in the second week of January or something.
I was just gonna say, I vote for a separate session because the layout we had
Mhm.
versus this is not conducive.
Yeah.
Maybe separate. Do you have a date then? Somewhere in between 1st of January and our regularly scheduled meeting?
We know the first will probably not work out too well.
No, we don't.
And so,
either.
and that leaves you with either the 8th or the 15th. You could maybe do a week before the big meeting and do a follow-up agenda item too.
That's.
Okay. Yeah, that's. Yeah, well, we're not open, I don't think. So we wouldn't be able to do it on the 15th. Could do the 8th.
I was gonna say, is that Board of Adjustment?
Board of Adjustment would be rescheduled a week later, so that they would be on the 8th, so.
And the supervisors are on the 9th.
They're on Tuesdays. They would be,
16th,
so any Tuesday we probably can't do.
okay? Does it have to be a Monday?
It doesn't, as long as there's a consensus with the commission on a date that works for everybody. Call it a special meeting.
Sometime the week of the 15th or.
You can do it on a Thursday. I'll be in a different meeting.
I'm sorry, I'm out of town 10th, 11th, I think that's second week.
Okay.
I-
17th is a Wednesday. 17th? Open. Jeff,
Yeah, I can make that. I have another meeting. I can skip that.
okay. Corey,
What day? was it?
17th?
5 PM.
That look good? We have a consensus? Sounds like?
Yep.
Okay. Wednesday,
Wednesday.
15th.
Got
All
it.
right, we got it. All right.
Okay.
Should we move on to the next item on the agenda? Okay, thank you. Public comment on matters not on the agenda again. We still have our people on the phone. And no one's jumping up. Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 7, which is commissioners' comment or inquiry. Commissioners, do we have any comments or inquiries? Okay, hearing none. Item number 8 is staff update.
This time I don't have any additional information to add.
Okay, we'll move on to number 9, which is the adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
5 o'clock. Be 5 o'clock.
That's
17th.
17th, Wednesday.
15th is Martin Luther King. So.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Wait a minute.
What?
Can we get copies of all that information that we got tonight?
Yes, you'll get it.
You email that to us?
Well, it'll be prepared in the report, but we'll get that out quicker.
Hey, I'm in favor of adjournment.
Hey, it will be sent out, not until the packet will be sent sooner.
We'll prepare a packet, then we'll send it. So, but we'll make priority to get it done early.
More reading material. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Can I do meeting adjourned or you have more? It's okay, Jeff.
No, I just, on that, the land value data stuff, is that something that you guys can try to see if there's anything on that?
We can look, there's been some comments kind of in Mobile. I know Supervisor Taylor kind of referenced it a bit, so I'm gonna go back and look through that some.
If we can find any data. Published data on that, be awesome too.
Like Iowa, like an Iowa
Oh, Midwest, I mean.
reliable
really
source,
Anywhere, I mean, a reliable source somewhere.
not
that
the
just
local
shows.
bar,
The bar's good too.
not
We'll see what we can
verifiable.
find.
Okay. Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate your comments and your time. Valuable information.